Good morning, everybody. Obviously, we're doing a little bit different today. We haven't had a webinar in a little while, so we are trying on Teams. We're used to Zoom, so same process as before. So you guys know the event will be recorded. The webinar will be recorded. So unless you want to have your video shown, I would suggest keeping your video off, your camera off, and your microphone off, unless you have questions. I think we have about 60 plus trying to join us this morning, which I'm hopeful is a great conversation. And like we always said, the best way to communicate is using the chat, which in this new feature is, I believe it's up top, at least for me, it's up top. You can ask questions in the chat, and whether it's myself, my staff, Nicole, Ryan O'Donnell will be on as well. Could try to answer those questions, and obviously you can ask us offline, and we'll do our best to try to get answers for you. We'll give it another minute as some people are still hopping on, getting some text messages of where's the link. Always fun. I'm on mute. I'm going to get going just to make it easier for everybody. I know your time is important and valuable, and as we head into the week ahead. So good morning, everybody. Scott Dolch, President CEO, Connecticut Restaurant Association. This is our first webinar of 2024. Making sure you guys know, I will see my best here to try to share the screen, and I'm hoping Nicole or someone will give me a heads up that it does work. So we have some slides. As I see Ryan on my screen, Ryan, is that working? That shared screen? Are you seeing the slides? Perfect. Mm-hmm. All right. So we know this morning, just kind of a quick run through. Two people that I will introduce more formally in a second. Nicole Griffin is our contract lobbyist from Powers, Griffin and Hill. And working tirelessly at the state capitol throughout our shortened session here, which ends on May 8th. And then obviously Ryan O'Donnell, our legal counsel from Pullman Comley, and his team with Maria and others. Both are going to kind of talk to you a little bit today about their respective areas, and kind of here to answer questions. Like I said before, if you're just joining us, best way to ask a question is through the chat. My team and others will try to do their best. If we have some time at the end, we can obviously take people off mute. Again, keep your screens off unless you'd like to be part of the recording, and keep your microphone muted. So I'll get started. Just kind of a quick run through, and I'm going to turn over to Yvette Tavares as well if I miss anything. What we're going through today on the webinar, quick update on the association, our events, national update, and then 2024 Connecticut legislative session. Nicole give you a lay of the land of where we are in session. And then obviously a Pullman and Comley update, and then Q&A. All right, a lot going on with my staff. I'll probably do a really bad job of giving you guys the best updates that we have, but annual renewals have gone out. I appreciate those that have already paid their 2024 membership, but all of our renewal invoices have gone out. I appreciate your continued support. As you guys know, we are a membership-based organization. Our association doesn't exist without our members, and we appreciate all that you guys do. But if you have any questions about your membership or what it means, and obviously I'm going to go through a second some other things that we're working on to kind of continue to help you. I think everyone understands at the top level the advocacy and what we do at a state and local and national level to help support you and your restaurant, your caterer, your private event venue. But also our job is to continue to help you grow with your business, and that's whether that's through our allied membership program, which we have close to 100 allied members, benefit savings program that we're going to talk about in a second. We also continue to try to promote you on a national level. Your restaurants, your chefs, and what we do, our resource guide as well. So quickly, so the annual renewals run out. Membership resource guide, you'll see that in the top right. That is a little booklet that Katie Gerber on our team did a great job putting together. What we try to do is do that annually. We haven't done one since 2022, but we're going to try to continue to update these now that we have them. Our allied members obviously put all their information. So really, we look at this as a guide that we hope that you have within your office of your restaurant or your restaurant group that you could go through and always look for questions or answers. Obviously, it has our entire staff, our extended staff with Ryan O'Donnell and his team. If you've got questions, it's obviously Nicole Griffin's contacts in there, whether it's Serve Safe, other programs that we try to do, healthcare questions, things like that. But then also our allied members' contact information for the most part is in there as well. So really, it's just trying to be a resource for you throughout the year of people to contact, different information that you might have known about or not known about to continue to check in. So if you did sign up for your membership or paid for your membership, you should have received that in over the last couple of weeks. If you have not, let us know. We'll make sure we'll get that out to you. CT Cravings, I just had that in the middle there. Katie and our digital team have done really a great job of trying to promote our restaurants with different themes throughout the year, keeping our social media going and through emails as well. So you guys know, what we're doing with each of those. We have different themes that we go through. So we had like winter themes. I know she's working on spring and obviously summer, expanded outdoor dining, other things like that. I think it's beers, burgers, and events right now. So you can go to ctrestaurant.org/CT Cravings to submit for your restaurant. Realistically, it's pretty easy. Just submit, what your restaurant is, what your a couple photos, and then we try to use that to promote our restaurants throughout the year. Next is our CRA membership exclusive savings. That is a new program that I know Liz Berry is back on our team after having the twins and working extremely hard, trying to make sure that you guys know with our allied member what exclusive savings that you have by being a member. And if there's any allied members on this call right now, if you have exclusive savings or programs or discounts that you want to offer to our members, please reach out to us. But we've had many responses on that. So working on kind of a booklet, a digital booklet for you guys of our different partners and what you get with your CRA membership to hopefully save you money. At the end of the day, that's what this is about. So that's our savings program. Obviously, the last two things on here, we do have a membership referral. I couldn't get the link up in the photo, but we have a membership referral program that our team put together. How that works is if you are a member already and you want to talk to another restaurant and ask them to join the CRA, if they use that member referral program, it's a $50 discount for them and a $50 credit for you. And obviously, we've had some people taking advantage of that. We appreciate all those that help promote the CRA to other, whether it's a restaurant or an allied member. We really appreciate the support. But that program has been launched this year and is pretty successful. And then really the other thing I had on here is member-only emails. We're continuing to get away from, with COVID, that we were sending everything out to everybody. I think it's really important that, being a member, you kind of have that insider information, and we make sure we get you guys emails. We're not trying to spam your folders by any stretch of the imagination, but making sure we have emails that are sent out to you in a timely manner that gives you guys updates of what we know, whether it's legislative, what we know with other new members or allied opportunities or events. Wanted to make sure I drove that home. So I will stop there before going into our events. And I know Yvette is on the call. Yvette, am I missing anything as far as your team is doing a phenomenal job with our members? Did I miss anything this morning?
No, thanks, Scott. I think you got everything. I know it's a lot here, but obviously we're a member-based trade association, and everything that we do, obviously our advocacy work is so critical, and that's very, that's priceless work that we do, but everything that we do is made possible by our members. So we just want to thank all of you. If you haven't completed your annual renewal, you will get an invoice in the mail, but you can also access that through online at our website. And also, I know Scott mentioned the member exclusive savings program. We're really excited about this. We've always had it, but we're relaunching it in a way that's easier to navigate. We've reached out to all of our allied members to make sure their programs are included. It's our goal to make sure you're getting a lot of value through your membership. So those savings by far in multiples will pay for the cost of your annual dues. So please take advantage of all the benefits of membership and reach out to our team if there's any questions. That's it, Scott.
Thanks for that. All right.
Thank you.
Shifting gears here for a second. Just a quick foundation update. As you guys know, with our 501c3 working extremely hard, to raise awareness for our industry. This is a photo here of our Connecticut Pro Start Invitational, which we had at Duncan Park. You can see the different teams there. You see some of the medals that are out there of all of our teams competing in culinary and restaurant management competitions. We had 2 state champions this year, both from Wilbur-Cross once again, and they are going to be competing down at NIPSI here in about 3 weeks. I'm headed down to Baltimore with Jennifer Cochran-Smith, our foundation director, to watch them compete nationally against the state winners from across the country, as well as Puerto Rico and DC. So really exciting. Obviously, this is one of the favorite days for me to watch these kids compete. I know a lot of you on this call were a part of the competition, and we thank you. But as we continue to grow, and we talk about all the challenging, as Nicole will get on here in a second, talk about the challenging things we have with our industry. It's always great to showcase that we're trying to build for the future, and to have, I think we have almost 17 or 18 high schools now with our culinary curriculum, which is called Pro Start. And then obviously we have our state competition and national competition. So I wanted to give you guys an update. You'll see emails and things of the team when we travel down to Baltimore and watching them compete against the best in the country. And hopefully we can, last year, our restaurant management team took home a national championship with their concept. And then obviously we're hoping our culinary team as well does extremely well. So those are kind of our Pro Start updates. If you know any high schools, I would just say that. I always drive that home. If you know any high schools around you, if you want to know whether they have the Pro Start curriculum or not, please let us know. We're happy to tell you. But if you've got ties into those high schools or into the superintendents, we'd love to continue to grow this program throughout the state. Also, as you guys know, we have many other things going on. I didn't even put all the different bullets in. We did a Jordan Porco suicide prevention dinner a couple months ago. Continue to work with using our foundation as kind of a catalyst to support the industry in so many different ways. And we're going to continue to do things like that. So we have had different dinners. We're going to look into the future. Also, mental health is a big part of what we want to try to do and focus on with our foundation. And then also, I'll talk about the HOPES grant application, which is that last bullet. So you guys know, I know that many of you guys have already been, our industry is a leader in hiring people on their pathway and second chance, formerly incarcerated, people that become employees within your restaurants. There's actually federal dollars that are out there. And with the help of the National Restaurant Association Educational Foundation, we have applied together for, it's probably going to be close to, about $900,000 to $1 million that might come back to Connecticut over the next 2 years to help us hopefully put 100 people that are on their pathway out of correctional facilities within Connecticut on a pathway into a job within our industry in the state. Obviously, we know that it was already happening, but there's a real dollars that we can use to help benefit the foundation and how we make sure it happens. And also working with career services, different businesses as well, or all of your restaurants. You'll hear more about this if we're successful in receiving a portion of this grant. So will be some potential dollars and trainings and ways to help. And I think we're looking in Hartford and Bridgeport and New Haven as pockets of where these people could come from. And it's a 2-year program, which 2.5, it'll start in July if we were to get it through the end of the next of 26. So really, really good news. Obviously, there's a lot of work that Jennifer put together to help with this application, but this is our next steps to the foundation and what we're trying to do. So any questions or people that want to get involved, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. But really excited about where we can take our foundation for years to come. So it's a quick foundation update. Couple big events that are coming up. I think you guys have seen a couple emails from us. CRA Night at the Capitol. That is going to be scheduled for Monday, April 29th. Please make sure you put that on your calendar if you don't already have it. So you guys know this is a picture last year a couple things so you know what this event is. If you have any people on here that are like, oh, I didn't go, I don't know what this is. So we haven't had this since pre-COVID. Last year was the first time we brought this back. What it is it's a showcase of our industry to the legislature leading into the end of any session. So April 29th will be, a little less than a week and a half, because session ends on Wednesday, May 8th. So it'll be that Monday, the week before that, where in the first floor of the Capitol, which is what this photo is here. If you've been to the Capitol, it's the first floor. It kind of extends out. We had about 18 restaurants last year. We're looking for about 30 this year. We have a little bit more space as we kind of expand out. What we ask of you is to if you want to be a participating restaurant, please reach out to Liz, Katie, or Yvette on my team as you're talking to them, and say, hey, I think Liz is obviously taking the lead at Barry at ctrestaurant.org. But what we do is it's just, giving small samples and stuff like that to legislators and their staff on that Monday night. And then if, there's the 30 restaurants, but then my bigger ask is everyone that's on this call extended should be coming to the event to walk around and talk. And we will introduce you to your local state rep or state senator and just having conversations with them. We're going to get into some of the issues that are going on at the Capitol, but this is actually one of the legislature's favorite days of the year because we feed them, obviously. And, it's a non-alcoholic event just because being on the first floor of the Capitol, we can't have alcohol, but we've got some great partners that we're working with, like Sierra Hill, kombucha, a couple different partners as well, to showcase in probably a spirit-free, a couple maybe bartenders as well, providing drinks. But this is such a great event. So you guys know, even in the orange photo, the orange dress there last year, that was Michelle Korsmo. I've invited her again. As the president and CEO of the National Restaurant Association. The governor comes down as well as leaders. The whole purpose of this event is to showcase the size and scope of our industry to all of our state legislators as they're leading into the last week of session, and talking to them about issues that are affecting you and things that we hope don't pass or bills that we want to pass, which we'll get into. So we had an incredible event last year and our first year back from COVID, but I'd love to expand this event. I'd love to see 250, 300 folks come out and be a part of it. So excited, definitely for April 29th, but I hope all of you guys, there are links in those emails just to register. It's free to register, just to attend. Bring your staffs, bring your GMs, bring others that you want to showcase and walk around and talk to, because all of the legislators will be in the building. The House and Senate should be in session, upstairs above this room photo here. And then they come down the stairs and they walk around and they mingle for those 2 hours. So CRA night at the Capitol, April 29th. Make sure you have it on your calendar. Next event is always one of our two signature events of the year. It's our golf classic. You're going to start to see stuff later this week coming out from us on this, hopefully even as early as today or tomorrow as we start registration. So this will be Monday, June 24th at Lyman Orchards once again. Really, really excited. We sold this out about a month ago. Last year, we think very similar again, even though we used two 18-hole courses. And then we're going to do a farm-to-table dinner following it, working with our chefs and our ProStart students to provide an incredible meal following the golf outing, knock on wood, that we have weather like today. So exciting that that'll be our next big signature event. So if you don't have these two dates, April 29th and June 24th on your calendar, we hope you mark it down today. Okay. Just shifting gears now before I turn this over to Nicole. Just a national update. There's really not a whole lot going on, as you guys can imagine, as we get closer to a November election, which is going to be very, very interesting. But there are some things that are going on nationally that we're still focused on. Sean Kennedy, I don't have a photo here, but I appreciate all those that are on this call to help support our Restaurant Advocacy Fund. We had a dinner. We just had a dinner last week on Wednesday at Union League Cafe, led by our board of directors, raised almost about $10,000 for the Restaurant Advocacy Fund. What is that? So you guys know that fund actually is used to support not only Connecticut, but states around the country fighting issues like tip credit, scheduling, the FAST Act, so many different challenging bills that come to the doorsteps of our legislature at a state level. And those dollars go back to support that. And we've been the recipient of receiving over $150,000 over the last 5 years in my role. So we had an incredible dinner there. And we also had Sean Kennedy come up, Executive VP of Public Affairs for National Restaurant Association, came up for the dinner, talked to everybody a little bit about what's going on down in DC. Obviously, they're still focused on the Credit Card Competition Act. There's other tax breaks, things that we are going to talk about in the next slide here. This is a photo of us a couple years ago down in Washington, DC for our Public Affairs Conference. Last year, it was June because of conflicts. This year, it'll be actually, I'm headed down there on Sunday, so it'll be next week. We're going to go down and meet with all 7 of our delegates. We have, I think, about 6, members / board members. I know this is a short turnaround for anybody on this call, but in the future, if you ever have interest in going down to see DC and meet with our delegates and talk about our issues on a federal level, it's such a great couple days, and this will be happening next week. We'll be meeting with our federal delegates to talk about the Credit Card Competition Act, to talk about immigration reform, to talk about tax breaks, to talk about other things that are maybe going on at a state level, but also making sure the federal. I know there's always a talk on the federal level about the tip credit. Just continue to educate our delegates on what that means and how that would affect our industry. So that is coming up on a national level. Looking forward to getting down next week and meeting with our delegates. So it's kind of the national update that I have. And now I'm going to kind of turn it over to Nicole Griffin. So as you guys know, Nicole is the best in the business when it comes to lobbying on a state level, and working hard. This year within the Capitol is what we call a short session. So it started in February and it ends May 8th, which is sometimes a good thing because it's short, but also sometimes it's scary because they try to bring some bills out that you try to get through and try to do it quickly. So I will kind of give a update on the right of some of the stuff Nicole's going to talk about, and she can answer other questions. So Nicole, the virtual floor is yours.
Thanks, Scott. Good morning, everyone. As Scott mentioned, we are in what we call a short session. Every other year, we have a long session and a short session in the Connecticut legislature. A long session is when the legislature proposes and usually passes a 2-year budget. A short session is often when the legislature makes tweaks to that budget and then passes other legislative proposals. This year, like many other years, we have bills that we're fighting against. We play a lot of defense in the Connecticut legislature. Scott has listed some of the big ones that we have this year that we're mostly defending against. One of them which we've seen the past few years is a bill that's titled One Fair Wage. It's a bill that would eliminate the tip credit in Connecticut. We've seen some heavy lobbying from an out-of-state organization called One Fair Wage to eliminate Connecticut's tip credit. It's supported by a lot of the progressive labor legislators in Connecticut. The bill has succeeded in getting out of the Labor Committee, and it now sits on the Senate calendar. What does that mean? That means the bill is ready for action in the Senate and could essentially be called for a vote at any time. We think the bill has a lot of opposition this year. We think a lot of the opposition comes from the House. Certainly the Republicans in both the House and the Senate are opposed to the bill. And we also have a lot of the more moderate Democrats in both chambers that are opposed to this legislation. So I think at this point, we have 4 weeks left in the session, and this bill has an uphill battle to make it through both chambers and to the governor's desk for his signature. Moving on from that bill, there's a bill called predictive scheduling, which is I guess it's a favorite of some folks that continue to put it forward. I think it's been around for about a decade. This bill would require employers to post employee schedules so many days in advance of those employees' work schedules. It's ranged somewhere between 10 to 14 to even more days in advance. And if employers make changes to those schedules, you are penalized by having to pay the employees their wages for those days. We also think that bill has an uphill battle this year, and we're working against it as we have in years past to make sure it doesn't see the light of day in both the House and the Senate. Different iterations of that bill would impact different kinds of businesses. The target the past few years have been national chains and franchises. So that's who the bill is really going after. There's a bill this year that's been around for the past couple of years regarding blood alcohol level for drunk driving while impaired, boating while impaired. As most of you are probably aware, the level for that in Connecticut right now, the legal limit is 0.08. This legislation would change that to 0.05. There's only one other state in the country that has that currently, and that is Utah. So this bill is being backed by our Connecticut Department of Transportation, as well as a state senator who is very passionate about this issue. It did come out of the Transportation Committee, and the bill is also sitting on the Senate calendar. This bill also is facing challenges from a lot of different industries. I think it will continue to come back. I think that the senator who is pushing the bill is trying to educate people about drinking and driving, which certainly is something this industry is on board with. We have quietly opposed this bill, as have others in the alcoholic beverage industry. And I think that this bill is also, like these others, is facing an uphill battle this year. Connecticut paid sick days. In 2011, the Connecticut legislature passed a law that would require employers in the service industry with 50 or more employees to provide 5 paid sick days in a calendar year that accrued after so many hours of an employee being employed at that business. So the restaurant industry for larger employers has had this for over a decade. The legislature is trying to expand this to apply to all industries. The difference is the employee headcount will be significantly lower than 50 or more. It will phase in, so it will go to 25, and then I think 15, and then maybe 10, and then it'll be basically 2 or more employees. So the difference for the restaurant industry is for large restaurants, you've had this for over a decade. After discussing it with our board, it hasn't really been too impactful. Employees haven't used this a lot, and one of the reasons we think they haven't is because there's a section in the statute which allows employees to switch shifts or take additional shifts rather than use paid sick time. And one of the reasons the Restaurant Association had asked for that in the statute many years ago is because for those employees that are tipped employees, they could switch a shift rather than take paid sick time. If they take paid sick time, they're staying home for minimum wage. If they switch a shift instead, certainly they're coming to work on a different day and making tips rather than just making that minimum wage on the day they take paid sick time. This legislation is likely to pass both chambers and be signed into law by the governor. There were 3 versions of this bill, a governor's version, a Senate bill, and a House bill. It is a big priority for a lot of legislators, and I do think it will become law this year. So for the restaurant industry, the change will be for those who haven't been impacted by it because of the number of employees you have, you now will be impacted by it. And certainly, I'm sure we will have a webinar post-session to talk to people about how to comply with it moving forward. There is a bill in the legislature that's been around for years about non-competes. It would essentially ban employers from having non-competes for employees. It looks like that bill is not moving forward anymore. A version of it died in the Judiciary Committee last week. So we think that that bill is probably gone for the year. Before I move on to the last bill on the list, there's a couple of other labor bills that I'll mention. One, there's a bill out there that would provide unemployment compensation for striking workers. I don't think that applies to most folks on this webinar, but it is out there. It has been around for a couple of years. I don't know what its fate will be this year, but it's an interesting policy change for Connecticut to mandate that employees who are on strike would receive unemployment compensation. I mention it just because it's something I think people would be interested in knowing about. There's also some legislation that Ryan's following on the legal side about non-disclosure agreements that's moving around out there in the Judiciary Committee. I don't know what the fate of that bill will be yet. There are only 4 weeks left in the legislative session, and a lot of these complicated bills might not make it through the House and Senate, but there is this legislation that would impact non-disclosure agreements. The next bill I'll bring up is what's on the screen here, interchange fees on sales tax. This is a proactive bill put forward by the Restaurant Association. In a nutshell, all merchants pay a fee to the credit card companies to process credit cards. What people may or may not know is the credit card companies include sales tax in the calculation of that fee. And so when someone is paying, let's say $100 for something, they're not only paying the fee to the credit card companies on the $100, but you're paying the fee for restaurants on $107.35 because of the meals tax. And for other merchants, would be paying it on $106.35. So with the increased use in credit cards across the board, legislation is popping up across the country in various states that would prohibit the credit card companies from being allowed to include the sales tax in that calculation. And so we went to the Finance Committee this year and asked them to raise a bill to prohibit the credit card companies and banks from doing that in Connecticut. We didn't really expect too much this year. What we got was a bill that would do that. We also got a public hearing, and we also were able to advance that bill out of the Finance Committee. Scott and I spent a lot of time working at the Capitol in the past couple of weeks with the Finance Committee. As you can imagine, the credit card companies and the banks sent a lot of people to Connecticut to fight this bill. I think their attitude has been, if one state passes this legislation, then other states will follow. Their arguments have been everything from they are protecting you from fraud to they just don't have the software to do it. And some legislators have bought that argument and others haven't. Others have thought this is ridiculous. They are putting a tax on a tax. And so I'm not sure that this is the year that this bill is going to actually pass. But what I can say is we've brought the issue to the forefront. We have legislators telling the credit card companies, this may not pass now, but you should be aware of this because we think this fee isn't really appropriate. And so it's a great issue for the Restaurant Association, for grocery stores, for other small businesses. So we're going to keep talking about it and hope that we make some more progress on it moving forward. We usually deal with a lot of bills in the General Law Committee, which has to do with liquor. This year, that was kind of a quiet committee for us. There were some bills early on in session that didn't move forward. We can see some last minute bills come back. Nothing's ever really dead in the legislature in Connecticut. As long as it has a public hearing, it can come back at the very last minute in the form of an amendment. So May 8th at midnight is when things really end for us. So we watch amendments that get filed throughout the next few weeks. And so we're at the Capitol every day watching for things and what happens with them. We might call on members to reach out to legislators. Please do that when you see those emails from Scott. It's very important. Legislators will come to me and say, hey, I heard from 3 restaurants in my district. Can we talk about this issue? They do care when they hear from constituents. It's important. So please listen to those emails when you see them from Scott asking you to reach out. I think that's kind of a summary of everything that's happening at the Capitol. I'm certainly happy to take questions from people if you have any. Otherwise, I'm sure folks have my email and my phone number. Feel free to reach out anytime.
Thanks, Nicole. I'm going to try. I apologize.
Can I ask Nicole a question?
You can ask Nicole a question, Mr. Abrams.
Hi, Nicole. On the
Go ahead.
On the blood alcohol piece of legislation, is there any documentation that shows that by lowering it from 0.08 to 0.05 that they're going to save lives? Seems like every time you read about somebody getting into an accident, they're way over the 0.08.
So that's a great question, Stephen. That's one of the things we talk about when we talk to legislators about this, that all of these accidents you see happen or these tragedies happen, people are way over that, and that going to 0.05 is almost like a total ban on it. And what happens to people going to that retirement party for someone after work, that you have one beer and you go home, and depending on the size of the person and their weight, is it just one glass of wine now? And I think for the proponent, if she had her way, it would be a zero tolerance. And that's where she'd like to be at some point. So she knows that all these years of putting the bill in are going to be a lot of education about drinking and driving. And perhaps that's her goal right now, is just to educate people. So I think your point is well taken. It's one of the arguments that we use when we're talking to legislators.
Yeah. And then one last question, if you don't mind, Scott, which has to do with the room occupancy taxes is being proposed to go up from 15% to, I believe, 17%. Have you any comments on that, if it has legs or not?
So my comment on that, Stephen,
go ahead,
is
Nicole.
in between budget year, the legislature's Appropriations and Finance Committee usually report out a budget adjustment bill, which would have been last week. And so this year they decided not to do that. So neither committee came out with their budget adjustment bill. So they're basically just following the governor's budget adjustment bill. So there's no new spending, no new tax increases or tax cuts. So I would say it's a TBD on anything, Stephen, and we won't know until the very end of session what they're going to do. You all hear about the fiscal guardrails they talk about. It's on the news constantly. They're trying not to overspend. And, you know, there's some ARPA dollars out there that they're trying to find and see what else can be spent. I think there are some private entities out there or state entities that had ARPA dollars they put into their budgets and they put them in as permanent expenditures. And then now they're coming back looking for that money from somewhere else. So I think they're trying to be a little bit more conservative in their spending right now. And the governor is definitely. So I think as we get closer to the end of session, those things will flush out.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, just to drive that home, Stephen, two great questions. I think, you know, as we go through the BAC conversations, as you guys can imagine, like it's a difficult topic for me to get out in front of. It's more about, you know, so you know, the only state that has lowered it to 0.05 is Utah. And if anyone has been to Utah, as I have many times, it is very much a Mormon state, and the challenge is there in their legislature about they actually try to move it to 0. Just because, you know, obviously most Mormons, they don't want alcohol or caffeine and things like that. So I don't think we're Utah, as I've tried to explain to proponents of the bill. I don't, to your point, Stephen, most of the data comes back and shows that you know, lowering it, it just causes a lot of other challenges. Lowering it might not really be the answer, because so many accidents and drunk drivers are well over the 0.08. They're actually over 0.1. So yeah, so those conversations are happening and continuing in the building. This is the second year the bill has come out. So everyone knows Senator Christine Cohen is kind of the leader of that bill, proponent, and just kind of having educational conversations with her specifically. And then also just kind of going back on everything else. If you have questions about paid sick days, that is obviously the bill from kind of the labor union that really wants to pass, and it's being carried weight. There's 3 different versions of the bill. We feel that the version that might get passed is at least a little bit more palatable to manage, because it doesn't just go from 50 down to 1. It does transition to 25, I think, to 10 to 1. And obviously, to Nicole's point, our biggest caveat in our industry, especially with a lot of your tipped employees, is to allow them to shift swap. Which was in the first version of the bill. And most of your larger restaurant groups on this call have over 50 employees, so you're already in it and have been dealing with it. If you're already offering 5 paid sick days or more within your own business, you already abide by the bill, so you would be fine. So we are still working through that and what that bill is going to look like, but understand that is kind of the you'll see a lot of news articles and things that this bill has legs, and it looks like it will pass sooner rather than later. But we just want to make sure the protections of this shift swapping is in there. You know, the other big one, so you guys know, I just want to share on the national level, the one fair wage argument and the tip spread elimination bill. Yes, it got out of the labor committee, just like scheduling did. But, you know, we are working hard, boots on the ground with Nicole, and I continue to educate the leadership in the building about how much eliminating of the tip credit will affect the state of Connecticut. And all of you on this call, like I say all the time, you have the option right now to eliminate the tip credit within your business and maybe do a service charge or do other things. You have that option. We want to continue to keep it so everyone has those options, because I will just share with you, data coming out of Washington, D.C. is extremely scary. So if you don't know, Washington, D.C. eliminated the tip credit a little more than a year ago, you know, through a ballot initiative. They haven't even lost it yet. They're on a pathway over the next 3 years to eliminate it fully. But even in the first 9 months since it has started, that I guess July 1 timeframe, it's almost like 10 months now since that has started the transition. The numbers are staggering. That just got, and it's not National Restaurant Association survey data, it's BLS data. BLS data came out again a couple weeks ago, shared that 3,700 full service employees have left the District of Columbia to go find other jobs, either in another field or outside the district. So really important that information is continued to be shared, and we continue to talk about. We also some of the data is sharing that one independent restaurant is closing in Washington D.C. every week. Is the updated data. So we know how scary that this is. Chicago hasn't started. Obviously, they eliminated it. These two big cities. This is kind of the one fair wage movement. But we're doing a really good job here in the state of educating. A lot of you have made phone calls and talked about it. I also say, if you know your legislator, call them, explain to them. Also have your servers and bartenders. They know how they're paid. They know that they don't want to lose those tips. They like to use the boogeyman tactics that, hey, we want just tips on top. Everyone knows our tip credit is $6.38, or we have a bartender credit of $8.23. If it went to $15.69, that's almost a $9 plus difference, $7 plus difference for bartenders. Every bartender or server, every hour that they work, and every different employee. Where does that money come from? So the only way Washington, D.C. is trying to live and to survive is by using service charges. And that's a whole nother, I'd even put junk fee bills on here, Nicole, a whole nother conversation that's happening on a national level with the FTC, as well as trying to make it even more difficult for our restaurants to manage their business. So that's why we're trying to keep the tip credit, and we feel confident that we hopefully can get that done. But I also would share with everyone on this call, on a national level, what is going on out there. One Fair Wage isn't just in our state. They're in other states and other cities around the country. And they are working hard right now to get it on a ballot, both in multiple states, in Massachusetts, in Ohio, and in Arizona. They're trying to put the One Fair Wage conversation on the presidential ballot in 24 in November. That obviously is extremely scary for my peer CEOs as I'm working with them to try to make sure that doesn't happen, and protect the tip credit in those states, especially those purple states, because it's going to be even more challenging for us. So One Fair Wage is around the country, led by Saru, and we're just keeping eyes on it. And I'm trying to do my job in Connecticut, but also learning from my peers nationally about what is going on, and how it could affect us in the short term or in the long term in Connecticut. So. And then the last comment I'll make on this list for Nicole, the interchange fees on sales tax. I appreciate all those that have made phone calls or sent out information on the sales tax, how important it is that where we are with trying to get a positive bill out there. I don't feel the credit card companies and processors should be charging you, interchange fees to collect the state sales tax. If anything, they should be charging the state, but we also know how hard it would be for the state to recoup. It's $80 million based on 2022 data. That our businesses are paying to the credit card processors and credit card companies to process sales tax. It's ridiculous. That money should be back in your business's pocket. And we're going to do what we can to get this bill even farther down the road this session and hopefully in the next session. Because we can be on the defense on some of these other bills, but we need to also be proactive in finding ways to help your business, because we're dealing with it on a Credit Card Competition Act federally, but this is a state issue, as I said to legislators. New Hampshire does not have a sales tax, so there are no additional commissions on interchange fees because they don't have a sales tax. And ours, we have a 1% meals and beverage tax. So we're actually paying an additional probably $2 to $4 million a year to these card companies, because thanks to the state for adding an extra 1% meals and beverage tax. So a lot of other things still going on. Nicole and I are going to talk about, but that goes back. I will just quickly see if I can dismiss. I apologize, trying to learn my screen here. I would just go, that's why this event is so important. I go back to the CRA United Capital. This is an opportunity for those legislators to meet you if they don't know who you are. And that way, when you do pick up the phone or they do walk into your restaurant, you can have some of these conversations on the side, and that you're educated on these bills and you can speak about these bills because it matters. I say it all the time. I always tell legislators when we talk about tip credit, go into your local restaurant and talk to your service staff. Don't talk to the owner. Ask them what they think about the tip credit. And they'll tell you, because we did do that survey, which we had 446 servers and bartenders. 96% of them said they want to keep it as is. They enjoy the tip credit, gives them flexibility. They're all making, I think, 80% plus are making over $25 an hour, 60% plus are making over $30 an hour. They don't want to change because, and that they probably don't fully know what's happening in Washington, D.C., but it is scary for the future of those restaurants down there in the district. And I don't want to see that in Connecticut. So we don't have a huge group on. I know Stephen unmuted themselves. Is there anything else I missed? I as in Nicole missed, or questions for Nicole, questions for myself, as we look at kind of the last, it's April 8th. So we are exactly, 1 month away from the end of session. Are there any specific questions anyone has, or something we didn't talk about that you've seen up at the state capitol?
Just a comment is that the governor wants to let everybody know that Connecticut's open for business, but then the legislature passes all these anti-business laws. I think it's a little bit of a fraud. I don't know if we could bring that out, but it seems like, they say they're open for business, but what do? We come out of COVID and they hit us with an extra 1% tax. And there's very few things that they pass in legislation that ever helps our businesses. I'm so thrilled that we have an interchange fee possibility to get on the front side of this curve. But also, Connecticut typically follows New York, and New York doesn't allow different types of fees, such as service fees, to stay with the proprietor. All those service fees have to be distributed to employees, and so that would probably happen here next.
Stephen, you're exactly right. I think that's when you go to the junk fee bill. There's a couple of junk fee bills, which I should even had a bullet here on that, so you guys know. There's a lot of the attorney generals around the country, I guess, met last fall, and they put all bills out on junk fees. This kind of goes back to the FTC. The Federal Trade Commission is trying to do a ruling on what fees you can provide in your industry. Obviously, it makes sense when you think about ticketing. It came to a head, I think, a little bit with like the Taylor Swift and everything else. It's like, oh, I can get tickets for $400, but actually, with fees, it's like $700. So not disclosing fees is something that's really, so we are working through that bill to make sure what effect it has not only on restaurants, but if you all have catering or their caterers on the call, having a room charge or having, a service fee put on because you're not having tipped employees. All of those conversations are real, to Stephen's point on what you can and can't do. But this is also when you go through the tip credit conversation, it's real. In Washington, D.C., the Attorney General tried to mandate when they put service charges on that all that money had to go back to the servers. And that's been fought in the courts and been shot down. But that's the reality of where we are, and why, keeping the tip credit there and keeping these conversations going and making sure they don't target our industry specifically, because it can be extremely detrimental to the future of our independent businesses, and our independent restaurants and all of our restaurants, surviving in Connecticut. And the last thing I want to continue to see is I know, City Steam had flooding and everything else in J. Dumont, but to see landmark locations call me and the struggles they're going through and having to close, those are not realities that I want to deal with anymore. I want to see openings. I want to see restaurants flourish. But some of this legislation, Stephen, to your point, is extremely disheartening. We have to do our job to hopefully keep these bills from passing. But I will promise you, we'll have another webinar. We'll talk about how important November's election is going to be. And everyone wants to sit at their dining room table and talk about how, the Trump-Biden conversation. And I would just share with everybody that, like, yes, it's toxic. It's what everyone wants to talk about. But I will say to you, our state races are going to be crucial to what is in our House and what is in our state Senate next in 25 for some of these bills having legs. And that's what is really scary, and making sure as an industry we are educated and we hopefully work to get our local officials that understand our businesses elected, and are up in that building, having positive conversations to support restaurants, support caterers and private event venues, and not doing the opposite. So all good points. Thank you, Stephen. Anyone else? Going once, going twice. All right. So, and obviously any additional questions you have, don't hesitate to call, text, email our team. We'll try to get you some answers on any other bills that are out there. And then kind of just shifting gears now, another expert that we have on our call and a great partner of ours, Ryan O'Donnell, is here, and want to give Ryan a second here to kind of talk about his team. I think we talked about it a little bit this last year. Ryan is now with Pullman and Conley, and they actually have built a hospitality law practice. And so it's not just Ryan, it's also Maria Rapp and others on their team that can help you and support you. And I say this to all of our restaurants. If you don't know, if you're a member already, you get free consultations from Ryan every year. And what does that mean? That means you can literally call him or call Maria or call someone and say, hey, do I need legal help with this? Hey, I'm dealing with, CHRO. Hey, I'm dealing with, trying to deal with the real estate and buying a property or selling my property. What do I do? Or tax law, or, all these things that are here, what they do. Obviously Ryan is an expert in labor and public and employment issues. But there's other members of his team that I call all the time, like, hey, do you have someone that can deal with intellectual property? He's like, yes. Maybe someone's trying to use your logo and hurting your own brand or whatever that it might be. So I will stop there. I don't steal his whole thunder because I know Ryan has some updates for everybody as well to make sure, we're just any changes in the state and federal law for labor and employment, as well as other areas. So Ryan, the virtual floor is yours.
Thanks, Scott, and appreciate everybody being on this morning. Thanks to Scott and Nicole and the whole CRA team for everything that they do to make the industry possible, and to make, we feel like we're very fortunate to be able to help out and pitch in here where we can. So yeah, I think, the first thing to touch on is that we have created this new hospitality practice group over at Pullman. It's really an extension of what I've been doing for the last several years with the labor employment side of it. As many of you, we've had some really great results lately in the labor and employment field for our restaurants. And now we're looking to sort of take that same level of service and expand it to other areas where Pullman has experts. Those experts, we have folks again in commercial real estate, tax law, lots of general business law and IP law. And those folks, if you want to engage them, will be engaging with you under my supervision. I'm the head of the practice group, and Maria is my vice chair. And so you'll be dealing with us in terms of supervision and the same level of service that you've come to expect. It's just simply an expanded menu of legal options. And we can definitely work the CRA discounts in as well. So it's not like we're going to be handing you off to folks that you're not familiar with. We'll be facilitating introductions, and everybody will be working under the Pullman Hospitality Group umbrella. So anybody has any questions, or if there's any of those areas of the law or other areas of the law where we might be able to help, please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know what's going on, and we'll see if we can find a way to help. Beyond that, there's a couple of areas that I just want to touch on, things that have been coming across my radar that I think is important for everybody on this presentation to hear about. One, we're looking at the tip credit law, and, again, we had some big victories in the courts regarding tip credit earlier this year. But one point I want to make is, just to remember when you are applying the tip credit that you need to actually have guests in the restaurant, which is you need to be open for business. Otherwise, you can't take the tip credit if you're not open. So if you're having folks come in, half hour early to set up, just make sure that they're on the minimum wage when they do that. Another issue that I've been hearing a lot about is managers and tip pools. In particularly salaried managers participating in employee tip pools if they're taking a shift on the floor or if they're behind the bar. Really can't do that. If you want to have a manager who needs to be participating in a tip pool, I would have them really be punching in as a server or a bartender, right? Just, and if they're salaried, they can obviously, but if they're not salaried, if they're an hourly manager, they can still participate, but again, they need to make sure that they're actually a bartender or a server for that shift, and not still wearing their manager hat. And a good way to help prove that is consistent payroll records. So, and beyond that, I've actually seen a strange uptick in National Labor Relations Board actions brought by disgruntled employees. We usually see, there's always the typical flow of CHRO complaints or DOL complaints, but I have noticed a strange uptick in individual employees post-termination going to the National Labor Relations Board and claiming that they were terminated or disciplined or otherwise let go for participating in what the board calls protected activity, right? Like they were somehow advocating for themselves or for their fellow coworkers. on terms and conditions of employment, and that somehow as a result of that, they were terminated. This is weird because, again, the board is a federal agency, and we usually don't see a lot of, just regular rank and file employees, even knowing what the NLRB is, let alone going there and filing complaints as opposed to the CHRO or the DOL. That tells me that there is an uptick in union activity behind the scenes, and that some folks are directing these other folks to go to the board and to start to create issues and to put the industry on the board's radar. It might just be, a strange temporary blip, but it has caught our attention, and it's just something for folks to be aware of, that is yet another avenue where your employees can come after you. And just to be very clear that, when you are letting somebody go, that it's well documented why they're being let go, and that it's not because they're advocating for themselves or for other employees, work conditions, but for the reasons that they're being terminated. Just make sure that's documented. I can never stress enough: document, document, document. And I think that's about it for my update, Scott.
Unmute myself. Thanks, Brian. I think that for everyone on this call, a lot of people know Ryan well and what he does to help support. So you guys know, just on another thank you from the CRA. Ryan is tirelessly works with Nicole because I always say I'm not a lawyer. I might have stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, but like so many of these these bills that come out and what the language says within them. Ryan's team does a really good job of turning it around quickly for Nicole and I to say, hey, what does this mean, or what are they trying to get accomplished in this part of the bill or this section of the bill? And that's why the next really 4 weeks is kind of crunch time for Nicole. Because to Nicole's point, yes, we might have battled off, and some bills did make it out of committee, some did, some had public hearings. And I think the reality is, things can always, and I learned this in my first year, can always be put in. As we say, things can be strike all and be added into the bill. So making sure when there's amendments or brand new bills that have new language, we have to work extremely hard to make sure, what does that mean? Or is that doing what it says it's supposed to do? Using the perfect example, the interchange fee, there's a lot of questions about, well, how would it be done and how, and I give credit to the Maria Horn, and who's the House Chair of the Finance Committee. Their legal team wrote the bill by saying, hey, if you can't do it in real time, you can reimburse the businesses, which also gave them less of an out as credit card companies, because they have to say, well, we can't do it. We don't have the technology. Well, you guys all know what you pay the DRS on a monthly basis, and you know what your fees are. So it's pretty easy to figure out what you're paying and how that could be reimbursed. So I just give Ryan kudos to that. I know he's going to work late nights with us over the next couple of weeks to make sure that the bills that we want to pass, and the bills that we don't want to pass, or the language within the bills, are updated and fixed. The same way as Nicole brought up, the shift swapping. As much as that sounds like we want to allow servers. I don't want to take a sick day because I'll be paid the minimum wage for the hours I don't come in. I'd rather shift swap for someone, and not work on a Monday night. I'll come in on Wednesday and I'll make much more, and I'm able to shift swap with somebody. That language is in the bill, or is in the statute currently. We need to make sure it stays in there. So Ryan's team does so much more than all the things that he does to work with you guys with the CRA. So we're fortunate to have him. Ryan, I would just say, just another quick question is, as you see stuff happening on a federal level make its way here, what else, if someone's new on this call, or maybe has just got into the industry or been in it only for a short time, I think I guess my question is, what are you seeing out there? What do you want to make sure that these folks are doing in the short term to make sure that they're running their business, I guess, above board, and making sure that they know what the rules and laws are?
Sure. Thanks for those kind words, Scott. I'm blushing now. But I think, the first a quick thing that I want to say before I forget, and then I'll try to answer your question. I with regard to the tip credit issues, in terms of the legislation, and I know that you guys touched on this, you and Nicole, but I just want to just drive it home, is that there does seem to be for some folks, not many, but some, there's a misconception that somehow the legislature will be content with just passing the tip credit laws with killing the tip credit and not going after the service fees. But from everything I've read and from what's happening in other parts of the country, I really don't advise banking on that. I think you may get a situation where if the tip credit was eliminated, they would then turn around and go after the service charge. To your point, Scott, tips on top. No one is going to be satisfied in a situation where the tip credit is eliminated and then the service charges are put on and the employers keep the 20% or so to offset the labor cost change. It's not going to happen. If they kill one, they'll kill both. Now, look, from a constitutional standpoint, I'm not sure that they can, take away our ability to apply a service charge, but they're going to try. And I think as this state, as Connecticut has proven with regard to the captive audience legislation, they have no problem passing laws that are constitutionally flawed and then saying, well, those are going to get fought out in the courts. And that process will take 3 to 5 years to grind its way through while the flawed law is still being applied. So you might have a situation where the legislature kills the tip credit, kills our ability to take a service charge. We have to file a federal lawsuit to demonstrate what a foolish concept that is from a constitutional law standpoint. But in the interim, you're going to be left with a situation where you can't have a service charge and you have no more tip credit. So I think that for anybody that's kind of on the fence about which way to go regarding the tip credit, I think that's a very important reality to understand, that it's not going to be as simple as maybe some of us hope. That being said, for somebody who is new and entering the industry, I think you've really got to be on top of how the tip credit works and how tip pools work, because the DOL in particular is all over tip pools right now. They are aggressively investigating tip pools, especially at the federal level, and the federal DOL is ruthless. They have time and they have money to kind of go through things top to bottom. And for instance, there are federal tip pool laws. There's no Connecticut tip pool law. That's something that folks are frequently confused about. But again, so you have to make sure that you're following the federal law for the tip pool. Again, because there is no Connecticut law. So I think understanding that there are some differences between the federal and state laws, and to understand that the DOL right now, in particular the federal DOL, is all over wage and hour stuff. I think that's just very important to make sure that you are paying folks properly, classifying folks properly, and understanding what your obligations are regarding the tip pool and regarding tip credit. And I think one more thing is the difference between tipping out and the tip pool, right? Tipping out is after you pay your folks, the servers and your bartenders, if they choose to tip out their support staff, that's great. But that's not the same thing as a tip pool. And sometimes there is some confusion about that. That's those employees getting their tips and then making a choice as what do they want to do with their money. A tip pool is something that would be, imposed at the time of tipping. And it would be, sort of paid out over the day or the week, depending on whether it's cash or credit card. So there is a difference between tip out and tip pool. And the federal DOL is being quite aggressive about those issues, as well as all things wage and hour right now. So I would definitely take a second to refresh yourselves on federal tip pool laws.
Such a great point, Ryan. And I would just suggest, obviously, this isn't part of the quick call, but even for those that have been in the business for years, decades, I definitely, think a wise investment sometimes is to talk to Ryan's team and possibly have them come and do a quick audit and review from their end. You definitely rather have that audit than you would possibly a federal DOL audit, of what you're doing. Just because even though you think, hey, I've been doing it this way forever, it's right. These laws and the rules of what you can and can't do change. The same way we all know, to go and how that worked in takeout has increased so much, you know, and how we all have these new POS screens that you flip in front and people are tipping and where that money goes and making sure it's being done the right way. I think there is just something to be said about making sure we want you all to be protected and doing everything above board. And when you do get, you know, and I think people get confused as well, like, oh, the state DOL came in and they passed me with flying colors. I don't understand why, but like to Ryan's point, there's state laws and then there's federal laws, and there's, you know, federal is a tip pooling conversation. It has nothing to do with state. So having these conversations with the Pullman and Comley team is vital, because at the end of the day, I want to be upfront and honest, you know, with restaurants out there that say, oh, this is how I've always done it, I'm good. I promise you that rules change on the weekly basis to the monthly basis. Obviously, with new presidential and federal side, you know, we talk about FTC and what's going on, like, you know, the 80-20, which doesn't really exist, but does, you know, and that's gone back and forth when it was the Obama to the Trump to the Biden. Everything is always changing. And I just want to make sure you guys are using the assets and what we have, and having someone like Ryan and Maria and their team really at the forefront to help protect you, because that's their job, is to make sure, hey, they want to go in and go, yep, you're doing everything great, we're good. That's the answer we hope we continue to hear. But there's a lot of times where people maybe are worried about having those conversations. There's nothing wrong with having a quick phone call with Ryan and maybe quickly answering it, but then going, you know what? Maybe it is. I've been doing this for 5 years. Maybe I just want to check and make sure. And now we've added these new toast screens. We've added these new things, you know, how we do tipping, where we have a jar, if it's a fast casual versus a full service. Like, there's so many different rules and laws at a state level as well as a federal level, that this is also where their strength is and his team. And I know the people that are listening today, as well as people that are going to watch this recording, I urge you to take advantage of the partners that we have, and Pullman and Comley and what they offer you. It's not just, hey, I'm being sued, you know, I'm dealing with a CHRO issue. Yes, obviously Ryan's team knows that, you know, and going to help you any way they can, but there's so much on kind of the labor and employment side that we want to make sure you guys, you know the laws and are doing it right, and you know, and what you can offer. I mean, I was just dealing with the other day about, you know, someone's employee handbook, what it had in there, and making sure maybe it shouldn't have all that information. You should have it somewhere else, and how it protects you down the road with employees, or how you're, you know, can you do full direct deposits and force your employees to have to take direct deposit, which you can't. And I know in talking with the restaurant, so I talk about little things, but that can become big things when it becomes penalties and fines or issues, class actions, the last thing that you want. So not to scare you guys at all today, but, you know, where I sit, I think it's important that you know, I look at our members and tell them every day that they should be using the support teams that we have to make sure that they're running their business the best way that they can and the most efficient way that they can as well. So Ryan, thank you as always for giving some time today. Anything else I missed, or anything else you want to add in?
No, just always appreciate the support and help, Scott.
Yeah. Well, listen, I thought this would take a full 90 minutes.
Nope, you cut out.
Sorry, I muted myself. I thought this was gonna take a full 90 minutes, but it doesn't seem like it has. But I guess I'll turn it over to questions. If people want to unmute themselves, show their screen if they want to, or just ask any other questions for Ryan or for Nicole. The floor is obviously open.
Feel free also to put something in the chat or Q&A if anyone has questions.
Scott, I have
a
comment that I think Ryan is absolutely right when he says something unusual is happening on the federal level, and why are we getting these complaints? This is a well-coordinated effort, and there's a reason why One Fair Wage will ignore 96% of our employees. And it's simply because they want to have more money in their paychecks so that they can tax them when they want to go to a union. This is all about unionization of our industry. And they won't make any money if they unionize a tip credit employee. They'll make a lot of money if the employees are making $20, $30 an hour as a regular hourly wage. So there's a lot happening on the federal level. There's never been fewer union workers in our country as a percentage of the total workforce than there are right now. And they are going after hospitality, and they're going after the restaurants. There's no question.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Steve. And I think so everyone, as I talk to people, they're like, Scott, you did that survey, and servers said they don't want the tip credit. Why is this not going away? Why is it continuing to be here? Understand this is a national movement. This is led by One Fair Wage, and they're funded by the SEIU. Like that's, you can obviously follow that understanding of where that's coming from. The other conversation. So everyone that's on this call, or if you hear the other group that's out there that's actually funded by One Fair Wage, they actually said it in the public hearing, is High Road Restaurants. There's a woman, Betty Marcone, that's reaching out to restaurants and asking them to join their mission. And they sell you this great story that, hey, we want to talk about how great your restaurant is and your employees and how you take care of them. But in reality, they're hiding behind the fact that it's a One Fair Wage pitch. It's a elimination of tip credit pitch. They actually tried to do that, so you guys know, early in session, right before session started, they tried to have a press conference at Metcha, and I got to Tony and Rich and had that conversation. So because they were sold a different story. They were sold, oh, we're going to do a press conference and talk about their Eat Justice program and how great they are to their employees and everything else. But realistically, it was giving a platform for Saru to get up in front of a microphone and talk about the elimination of tip credit, which they're still using the tip credit. So I always say, if there's any reach out or things media wise, that's the other big piece to this. Please reach out to us. If a news station or someone's writing an article or a story, or someone wants to do a press conference with you, we are happy to help vet that. We want you guys to tell your story. We want you guys to be in front of camera, but also just be very cautious on some of these groups that are out there and what they're doing and what they're trying to do, and kind of misinform our industry, which is really frustrating. And Stephen, you're exactly right. This isn't going away, but I do think the efforts of everyone on this call this year has been extremely successful and continuing to drive home. I mean, the governor was even quoted multiple times that about the tip credit and how he's talked to me and he's talked to the industry and feels the industry is not asking for this, which is a great thing that we even have with the governor making those comments, and we'll have to continue to do that. So I'll also just shift gears. These are everyone's email, so you have it. If you want to reach out, you have Nicole's email on there. You've got obviously Brian Duran isn't on today, but our PR firm that can help us with media and other things there, and obviously Ryan as well, and everyone else. So other questions people have. I know we still have about 10 or 15 minutes. I'm happy to stay on. People have questions. And I don't know if we want to unrecord or if people feel more comfortable to ask questions, but
Scott, I just want to comment. We did have a comment in the chat about potentially hosting some type of webinar or otherwise on tip pooling and other tip issues. I just kind of responded that those topics we typically do at our in-person wage and compliance seminars. We don't have them scheduled just yet, but when we do, we will push that out to everybody. Please attend those. Those are typically conversations we have at our in-person trainings. But please look out for our emails when we do have those. And if you have questions in the meantime, not sure where to start, we are your resource. So reach out to us first. We can always connect you with someone on Ryan's team or with Nicole or someone else to make sure that your questions get answered. But please don't hesitate to reach out to us with any type of questions.
Sorry.
Scott, you're still on mute.
I was on mute. Thanks, Katie. Such a great point to that side. Reach out to us. We've seen all the questions. We can hopefully get you an answer, get you to the right people. Yes, the reason why we don't go deep with Ryan into these conversations, why we do it in person, is because we also want, that's why I said calling us or having that Ryan's team or someone come down and have these conversations about your business. It's important we talk about it in person, so you feel comfortable. And obviously, with this, as opposed to these webinars, I know sometimes webinars are a good thing, but when it comes to wage and compliance and all those things, I do like doing those in person and bring Ryan's team in to go into the weeds a little bit more on some of these issues. Thanks, Rob, for the question, though. Other questions? Everyone's going to CRA night at the Capitol, I hope. Just trying to think of.
I think right now they're trying. They're trying to find their eclipse glasses, I think.
Is it 5 to 7, Katie? I did the graphic. Liz?
Yeah, 5 to 7.
Yeah, so I suggest getting there a little bit early if you're not participating with your restaurant to serve some food. But if you guys want that exposure, obviously we typically give you guys a 6-foot table. There are challenges within the building about you can't really have open flame or cook any food. Everything's kind of got to be brought in warm or hot boxes or brought in through bags and things like that to keep things warm. So that is a little bit of a challenge on that first floor of the Capitol, the same way with the alcohol piece. But I would suggest showing up around 4:40, a little bit early. So, parking is always fun around the Capitol and being there for the event. And there's, good question though, Stephen. Any other questions here on a Monday for the eclipse event?
Nope. And thank you, Scott Riley, for your positive comments. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Scott, I hope you're doing well. Hope everyone's doing well. Yeah, I mean, I think there's many other things that we could talk about today. I do want to continue to go back and drive the message home that my staff is here for you as a resource. They're phenomenal what they're doing, and continuing to get more and more information to help you and where you see value in membership, as can be a test to the people that are on this call today, giving you guys updates about what's going on. And that's where, we are a membership-based organization. These dollars go back into having the support team that we have, whether it's our staff, whether it's Nicole, whether it's Ryan, Brian Duran, so many others. That's where, we try to do our work. So you guys, we don't want to share and scare you guys with all the bills. We probably could have put 30 or 40 things that are going on, but the reality is, we're working hard to keep a lot of things off floors and not getting bills passed. But those are obviously the ones that are really an issue this year. But as always, guys, I thank you. Thanks, Rob, for what you guys do down there. And continue to help us as we move this thing forward. A lot still going on at the CRA, so you guys know, whether it's CRA Night at the Capitol, or it's the golf tournament, the Crazies. I didn't even touch on that, but the Crazies is set for December 9th. As we look forward to another record-breaking year, and how important that event is to showcasing our industry. And then the other big one I didn't mention, I should have had probably a full slide, but congratulations to Renee Toupont at the Port of Call and Oyster Club, and David Standridge at Shipwright's Daughter, both Mystic chefs. So David is finalist, which means they're he's top 5 finalist for Best Chef Northeast. It's, I think, last year, Renee and Christian from Community Table and Renee from the Port of Call were finalists last year in that category. Hopefully David can take home the top prize. And then the other one is Renee Toupont, since you guys haven't heard. She is a finalist, which is top 5 for most outstanding chef in the entire country, which we've never had a chef from Connecticut, even a semifinalist to the top 20 in that award. She's in the top 5, and they both find out on June 10th in Chicago. We're hoping to bring some medals from the James Beard Awards, but those are just 2 examples of how many incredible restaurants and chefs and stories that we have in our state. And I thank you guys for being a part of that, as and also showcase where the Crazies have come when you have Standridge David being up for chef finalist and his restaurant getting overall at Shipwright's Daughter 2 years ago. And obviously Cora was a semifinalist this year and was overall restaurant at the Crazies, and Renee Toupont being a 2022 chef of the year. So much fun for our industry. These are the positive things we want to continue to talk about. That's why I go back to that CT cravings or other things that you have going on within your restaurant. We want to tell your story and get that out there. So if there's anything else, if there's nothing else, I guess we'll end a little bit early. As always, Nicole, thank you for your time. Ryan, thank you for your time. Everybody have a great week. Make sure you wear those glasses. Keep your eyes from the solar eclipse. Hopefully the clouds stay out. It's a great thing. I think some restaurants are doing some fun things around the solar eclipse today. So thanks again. And we will definitely be back in touch probably right at the end of session to kind of give you guys a lay of the land of what actually happened, what bills passed, what bills didn't pass, and how that affects your business and moving forward. So thanks as always for the time, and we will talk to everybody soon.